Hello there and good morning. I wonder how the proud French people will take this from their president. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. And when subscribing, please do press that little bell, but also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, is not having a good time of it at the moment. He keeps digging holes for himself, with his reactions to the AUKUS submarine deal being a corker of an own goal by him. But he's now engaged in converting the digging of a hole into the excavation of an entire mining infrastructure. Because the word on the street is that Macron is toying with the idea of handing over the power of France's permanent seat on the UN Security Council to Brussels. Talk about being a Europhile. According to a report in the Telegraph, a close ally of the French president said that if the EU standing army was on the table, then there should also be discussions concerning the French Security Council seat. This is actually a big deal. The Security Council is one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations, which was born from the failure of its forerunner, the League of Nations, and from the atrocities of the Second World War. The UN Security Council has primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security, and also takes the lead in determining the existence of a threat to the peace or an act of aggression. And France is one of the big 5 countries with a permanent seat on the now 15-seat Security Council. The other 4 nations with permanent seats are China, Russia, the UK and the US. And this permanent seat brings much prestige and power to France. And it also gives them a veto on major global decisions regarding peace and security. Only those 5 countries get that veto, permanently. All the other member states of the UN queue up to take one of the other 9 seats on the Security Council for a 2-year term. And it doesn't matter how they vote if just one of the big 5 vetoes it. Now that the UK has, for the most part, achieved Brexit, France is the only EU member state with a permanent UN Security Council seat. And Macron would hand that over to Brussels? Surely not. Surely this would be a hole too deep for the people of France to follow Macron down. But the Telegraph says that Macron is understood to be willing to share its UN seat with Brussels as long as it leads to the whole EU having a single foreign policy and a common defence posture. Now, the Security Council is the big cheese in the UN. It is the only UN body that can issue binding resolutions on all UN member states. It is the body that recommends the admission of new UN members, approves changes to the UN Charter, establishes peacekeeping operations, has the power to enact international sanctions, as well as, where deemed necessary, authorising UN military action. Is President Macron so hell-bent on forming an EU superstate and an EU army that he would hand all that over to the Eurocrats? Well, it seems that Macron is calling for other EU member states to stump up more money for defence in order to bolster up the total defence clout that the EU could call upon. But in return, the other member states, such as Germany, Italy and Spain, are saying, put your UN Security Council seat on the table for EU control and we'll talk about more funding. So amongst the bigger EU leaders, maybe Macron is pushing on an open door. But what of the pride of France and its people? Are they to be ignored? Or are the French, as a nation, all as intent on EU control over them as Macron is? But with France being the next nation to take over the rolling 6-month presidency of the EU, as well as Merkel now bowing out, Macron might see this as his chance to be the new Emperor of Brussels. Well, at least until the French presidential elections starting in April next year. But he has been buttering up the electorate with a one-off €100 energy grant for low-income households to ease the pressure of the rising gas prices in France. Yes, they're going up in France as well. But voters as a collective do have short memories where these sorts of things are concerned. And would they put a €100 payment above their national pride, the French? Anyway, the good news for those in France who take a pride in their nation is that the mechanics of achieving Brussels' control over the French UN security seat might prove unworkable, at least in the short term, because for a start, the EU is not a member of the United Nations. It only has permanent observer status. And if it's somehow qualified and applied for full UN membership, we in the UK could exact big concessions from Brussels or veto it. So as I see it, the EU can't be on the Security Council, let alone as a permanent member, at least for now. To achieve Macron's aim, France would have to somehow merge with the EU, along the lines of how Russia kept its seat when morphing from the USSR into the Russian Federation. Or the EU would have to have some form of internal agreement that every vote on the UN Security Council by France was in the grip of Brussels. Actually, it probably already is. In fact, as the EU foreign and defence policies develop, its member states, including France, will increasingly have to fall in line with Brussels' think. They will have zero choice. So maybe Macron is trying to make the increasing subservience of France within the EU and the inevitable relinquishing of the UN Security Council seat look like his choice and that of the French people, whereas in reality it is being forced on them by the ratchet of EU ever closer union. Maybe Macron is trying to take charge of the narrative to make it appear he's the one that's in control, when nothing could be further from the truth. A bit like someone standing up brazenly in court saying they'd just taken the decision to donate some money to the nation's coffers straight after the judge has slapped the fine on them. You get the idea. Anyway, handing over their Security Council seat only makes sense for France as long as they maintain some form of control over everything. But once given away, they'll never get it back, not as an EU member state they won't. But is the French president looking at this from a long-term French perspective or from a short-term Macron legacy EU viewpoint? Now, as Brussels gets even more power, the pressure will come on for matters of defence and foreign policy to be decided by qualified majority voting, so that no single member state could veto a Brussels decision. And at that point, the French Security Council seat becomes, de facto, the EU Security Council seat, whatever you call it. And if Macron thinks this would be a win for France, it wouldn't. It would be a victory for Brussels, and one that the people of the EU region that was once a country called France would vilify the memory of Macron for down the ages. So what's your opinion on the French Security Council seat? Please like and comment below.